working class Americans who are without work and get the take-home pay for families in this country up and allow the quality of life and the standard of living to improve for every American family. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Georgia.
Mr. President, before I make my remarks, I'd like to join Senator Thune and the others on the Senate floor who've expressed their compassion and their sympathy to the survivors and the victims of yesterday's terrible tragedy in Washington Navy Yard. Yesterday was but another grim reminder of the dangerous society that we live in and the dangers that can confront all of us and the need for all of us to be aware and do everything we can to make sure our environment is secure and our environment is safe. But to those who were injured, those who sacrificed their lives, those whose loved ones were hit, may God bless their souls and may God bless them in their recovery in the period that they deal with the terrible tragedy. Mr. President, tonight in Marietta, Georgia, my hometown, there will be a celebration that I cannot attend. It will be a celebration to honor 50 years of medical service to our community by Dr. John D. Knox, Jr. I hate it that I can't be there because he's been an important part in my life, but I wanted to take a minute on the floor of the Senate to pay tribute to Dr. Knox and to all those physicians who deliver the health care to our people and our citizens of our state, our district, and our country. You know, as I pondered what I would say about John Knox on the floor this morning, I was sitting in my office looking at the plaques and certificates that all of us receive for various things we've done in public life. And it occurred to me, you know, when you go in a doctor's office, you'll see a diploma. You might see a Norman Rockwell painting. But really the trophies and the tributes to doctors are people walking around with 2 feet around your community who've survived a terrible injury, a terrible disease, who are living a normal life because a physician and his training or her training brought them back to life or cured a terrible problem. Dr. John Knox has done that for 50 years in my community. 50 years as an orthopedic specialist and orthopedic surgeon with Resurgence Orthopedics, one of the largest orthopedic practices in the Southeast. In fact, one of those great trophies to John D. Knox, Jr. is my son, Kevin, who in 1989 went through the windshield of a pickup truck on a rural road in South Georgia, double compound fracture of his lower right leg, landed in a ditch full of dirty water, and laid there for 2 hours before help came. Fortunately, he didn't sever an artery, but he was in bad shape. I got the call at 4 a.m. that no parent ever wants to get. The call that the paramedics had my son, they were on the interstate, did they want to take him to the Augusta Medical College or to Atlanta, Georgia for treatment because nobody in rural Georgia had the facility to treat his injuries. I immediately asked him to bring him to Marietta, Georgia, immediately asked him to bring him to Kennestone Hospital, and immediately called John D. Knox and asked him if they would meet my son at their emergency room. The next 6 weeks, my son had 4 surgeries, all delivered by John D. Knox. Had antibiotic therapy to make sure his bone marrow did not get infected for laying in the ditch. For 8 months, he got psychiatric and psychological help and home recovery with his wife, with his mom, myself, doctors, and those physicians recommended by John Knox. And the great story is the night before my son was injured, he started at defensive end for Walton High School. 1 year later, after this terrible wreck in the recovery, he again started at defensive end for Walton High School. The miracle of medicine put my son back together. But if it wasn't for John D. Knox, my son might not be here today. So I want John D. Knox, a great doctor in Marietta, Georgia, to know that what he did in 1989 for my son and did for countless thousands of citizens of our community for years and years and years never will go unappreciated and will always be recognized. I'm glad my family was a part of his 50 years of service as a physician. God bless John D. Knox, and congratulations on your service to our great community of Cobb County, Georgia. And I yield the floor, to the Senator, distinguished Senator from Indiana.
Mr. President.
Senator from Indiana.
Mr. President, yesterday the President indicated that we need to pivot back to fiscal issues facing this country and facing the Congress. This after a year of a little sense of urgency on perhaps the most pressing and challenging domestic issue before us. And of course, issues like Syria and foreign policy issues have to be addressed, but we have had a year in this Congress, this current Congress, to address our fiscal issues, knowing that we were moving toward a drop-dead date fiscally of September 30th. And here we are now, more than halfway through September, again beginning to take up the issue that is going to direct the fiscal future of this country. The clock is ticking away, and we have spent little time addressing this issue and preparing for what is coming. So here we are, once again, careening toward one more fiscal cliff. The American people are sick and tired of this. I think the Senate and the Congress is sick and tired of doing this, and yet we find ourselves once again careening up against a deadline, knowing that we have to provide funding to keep our economy moving forward and keep our government from moving forward with essential services. Clearly, we can all argue for a number of things that don't need to be funded or can be postponed, but there are essential functions of this federal government that can't be handled any other way, and we have to provide that funding for it. National security being the top priority, homeland security. We continued to see issues in terms of providing safety for American workers at their workplace, for our military and the tragedy that occurred yesterday at the Naval Yard. These all come under the rubric of providing law enforcement and homeland security enforcement for our people. So these are essential functions. And unless we come to some agreement by the end of this month, we're going to shut all that down. Our troops won't get paid. Our homeland security people won't get paid. A whole number of other essential functions will not be able to take place. So we have a lot of work before us and very little time to do it. We also know that very quickly, shortly after the end of this month, if we don't pass an ongoing resolution to provide for funding while we work out some of our differences, we also will be addressing reaching the national debt limit. And we're going to have to address whether or not to raise, and if so, how much to raise, the current limit at which we are able to borrow money from. We are today looking at a debt limit of about unimaginable national debt of $16.7 trillion and growing every day. All of you who have seen all of us who have seen the debt clock clicking away are astounded at the rate we spend and how much we have to borrow in order to cover our spending because the revenues do not match the spending. We've been in a spending addiction here for decades, as if money just falls from trees or it can just be printed down at the Fed and we don't pay any consequences for that financially. We've been in a 5-year limp growth of this economy, timid growth that's not putting people back to work. Our economy is not working well, and yet we still are spending way beyond our means, and that also has to be addressed. In the last 20 years, federal spending has grown 63% faster than inflation. And so it's clear that without changes, mandatory spending, including debt interest, is going to consume 3/4 of the federal budget in just one decade. Almost half of that federal spending will go towards Social Security and health care entitlements. In 2002, that percentage was 25%, and now it's 45%. Far too little has been done to address this runaway spending train. And instead of waiting for another crisis to hit, instead of governing from one fiscal cliff to another, isn't it time that we work together on a plan to reduce our debt and curb the rate of mandatory spending? This is a matter of extreme importance. It can't be solved with a deal at the 11th hour. Now, the fact is, there's been a lot of talk around here about putting us on a path to fiscal solvency, but no real action, and the clock continues to tick. Excuse me. So I would like to ask the President and the Senate Majority Leader, at what point do they think we should start acting on a plan to reduce our debt? 17 trillion? 20 trillion? 25 trillion? At what point, Mr. President, at what point do we say this is unsustainable? This is driving us toward insolvency. We need to take action. How much red ink is too much? When will the President draw a red line on debt and borrowing? When pressed, the President says, well, he actually has a fiscal plan. Just continue to raise taxes, pass another one of his stimulus spending plans, last one didn't work too well, and adopt his budget that doesn't even have the support of his own party. Clearly, the President is unwilling to lead on our fiscal crisis. And absent that leadership, I am urging my colleagues here in the Senate, Republican and Democrat, let's focus on this important issue. Let's put something on the President's desk and ask him to either sign or reject it. But let's stop waiting for the White House to come forward with a plan, because their plan is going nowhere. It doesn't have the support of either side of this body, Republicans or Democrats. So I'm urging the Majority Leader to focus the Senate's attention on reducing our debt, growing our economy, and getting Americans back to work. The best way to grow the economy and secure our country's fiscal future is by creating a long-term budget plan that focuses on restructuring mandatory spending programs, reforming our tax code, and cutting unnecessary federal spending. This has been a mantra of mine ever since I came back to the Senate. I came back for this very reason, and here we are 3 years back from the 2010 election, when the public was urging us to address this issue, still have not accomplished what we came back to do. And it's because we have not had leadership at the White House from this President to address the underlying issues here that are so plain, that are so before us, that are so consequential to our fiscal future. And when you hone it down to what it means to individuals, whether it's saving money to be able to send their kids to college, whether it's getting a decent job after you graduate with a huge debt and be able to pay that back, whether it's getting middle-class people back to work that have been laid off for years, getting our economy moving again at more than a timid 1.8% or 1.5%, stumbling along after 5 years of recession, the policies, whether you think they're right or not, frankly, haven't worked. So isn't it time to deal with something that everyone knows we need to deal with, and that is excessive spending, this addiction to spending, plunging into debt that is holding us back from doing what we need to do. I'm committed to working toward a solution to address our debt, to strengthen our economy, and help provide full-time jobs for Americans, millions of Americans that are without those jobs. It's time to stop procrastinating. It's time to start acting. It's time that the President and this Congress stop delaying the hard choices and start representing the American people who sent us here. It's so unfortunate that we cannot rely on the President, the leader of the country, to act. In fact, he's announced he won't even discuss this incredibly important issue that determines the financial viability of our country. The President says, I won't negotiate with Congress on the debt limit. I won't negotiate with Congress on the resolution coming before us to fund the government going forward. How does this provide results to the American people? How can we work on a plan to reduce the debt if the President refuses to even negotiate it? Now, he's willing to negotiate with President Putin of Russia, but he refuses to negotiate with Congress on how we can address our rising debt. This isn't leadership. We can't rely on President Putin to pull us out of this one. Mr. President, I yield the floor. Mr. President, it appears that no one is here to follow me, so I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander. Well, the Senate is back in full session today after recessing early in the day yesterday because of the Washington Navy Yard shooting. It's general speeches this morning, and we are hearing reaction to the shooting from lawmakers that has included a call for a moment of silence by Majority Leader Harry Reid that happened at the beginning of the session. At about 11:30, the Senate will start debate on a couple of judicial nominations with votes on those to follow. And then at 12:30, the Senate's expected to recess for their weekly party lunches. We are also expecting work to continue on an energy efficiency bill to continue when the Senate gavels back in at 2:15 Eastern today. Amendments may be considered this afternoon. A number of amendments have been proposed unrelated to the bill, and bill managers are working behind the scenes to decide which to bring to the floor for a vote. Well, the Senate's been in a quorum call for a little bit. They were expected to begin debate on a couple of judicial nominations. Patricia Campbell-Smith to be a judge on the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Also, Elaine Campbell to be a judge on the Court of Federal Claims. That obviously is getting started a little bit later than expected, although the Senate is expected to recess at 12:30 for their weekly party lunches. We are also expecting the Senate to continue work on an energy efficiency bill when they gavel back in at 2:15 Eastern today. While we wait for more remarks on the Senate floor, Minority Whip Congressman Steny Hoyer believes that the latest mass shooting tragedy will renew the discussion on ways to reduce gun violence in the country. In a discussion with Politico this morning, Congressman Hoyer revealed that he lost 3 constituents in yesterday's shooting at the Navy Yard. Politico's chief economic correspondent also posed questions to the Maryland congressman regarding the budget and debt ceiling talks on the Hill, tax reform, and who should be the next Federal Reserve chair.
Economic and fiscal matters before us, starting with the next chairperson of the Federal Reserve. We saw Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, withdraw his name from consideration over the weekend. By all accounts, he was the administration's first choice, the president's first choice for chairman of the Fed. First, do you think it was the right thing for Larry Summers to do, to pull his name out of consideration? And obviously you're on the House side, but do you think had he gone up to the Senate, he could have been confirmed as Treasury Secretary?
Well, I don't know the answer to the second question. There was obviously controversy. I've had the opportunity of working very closely with Larry Summers, both when he was Deputy Secretary under Bob Rubin in the Clinton administration, and then as Secretary. I found him to be extraordinarily competent, knowledgeable, respected, and I know that the President relied heavily on him for economic advice and felt strongly about his capabilities. I have not talked to Larry Summers, but my conclusion is that he decided that the controversy that would be surrounding the confirmation or his appointment would undermine the confidence that we need to have in the Federal Reserve. And so I think in a very responsible way he made a determination that he did not want to further politicize or create controversy within the Federal Reserve. So I think he probably did the right thing, certainly from his perspective, but he is a person of immense capability and will continue to contribute.
Do you think Fed Vice Chair Janet Yellen is the best pick for the president now that Summers is out of contention, or are there other candidates that you think would be?
I think she would be an excellent appointee. I think that she enjoys wide respect, and I think she would be somebody who would be confidence building of the Federal Reserve. But there are others as well, and this is, of course, a choice the President is going to make. And I would hope that he would make it relatively soon so that we could stabilize, because I think that given the other economic turmoil we're going to talk about, having the Federal Reserve as a stable, respected institution that gives confidence to the marketplace, very important.
Do you think that the administration has taken too long in making this appointment? One of the arguments from folks who are supportive of Larry Summers is that had they moved more quickly, some of the opposition would not have coalesced and he could have gotten through the Senate faster. Are we at a destabilizing point where this nomination not having been made is having a negative impact on the economy?
I certainly think at this point in time, making this appointment as soon as possible will be helpful.
Yeah.
Remarks from House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer earlier today. You can see all of what he had to say this morning on our website at cspan.org. By the way, live right now on C-SPAN, it's a discussion with the CBO Director Douglas Elmendorf. He's talking about the long-term budget outlook, that is. He is live once again on C-SPAN, and you can see that up until noon when the House gavels back in. Also, a quick reminder that we'll go live at 1 Eastern to the National Press Club, where Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin will speak. She is the chair of the National Governors Association. She'll talk about her initiative on education and job training. Again, that will be live starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on C-SPAN 2. Again, we're waiting for Senate debate on 2 judicial nominations. That'll be followed by votes on those nominations set for 12:15. Lawmakers will then break for their weekly party lunches. While we wait, more now from House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer this morning, reacting to the shooting at the Washington Navy Yard yesterday.
Frankly, Ben, I don't know enough about the facts. We'll have to find those in the coming days. I lost 3 constituents. They lost their lives that were working at the Navy Yard, 2 of whom lived in Charles County, and 1 of whom lived in St. Mary's County, the county in which I live. I'm sure that it will renew the discussions about access to weapons that can be used to kill a lot of people quickly. We have seen, however, in Colorado just in the past weeks, 2 legislators who had the courage to vote for legislation which simply asked that we do a background check so we know who's getting guns, which 80 to 85% of the American public say is a sensible policy. Notwithstanding that, these 2 legislators were recalled in a special election. Now, one can analyze who comes out to special elections, but it does not bode well for asking people to vote for legislation similar to that which went down in the Senate just a few months ago. But I'm sure it will renew the debate and the discussion, as it should.
And in terms of his access to the Navy Yard, he appeared to have security clearance despite some very troubling events in his background, the alleged shooter. Can you tell us anything about how he got that access? Is that something that you'll be looking into? It seems like there was some significant breach of security there.
I don't have additional information, but you're right. It's something that must be looked into. Again, what we have seen in so many of these instances are that the perpetrators have given previous indication of instability, of even inclinations to use weapons and to talk about violence, whether they did so on a website, whether they did so with colleagues or classmates. In almost every one of these instances, we've seen the perpetrators be people who individuals thought were unstable and thought, in this case, apparently this guy was prone to violence. He had apparently shot the tires out of a neighbor's vehicle. He'd shot through the ceiling of another neighbor. This was somebody. He was given a general discharge from the Navy, so that there was no doubt that this was somebody who had a record of instability and certainly should have been I think, subject to closer scrutiny, particularly in access to a facility such as the Navy Yard or any facility that has large numbers of people in it, that has security concerns in the United States.
Right.
And a reminder that Steny Hoyer's complete remarks from this morning can be seen in the C-SPAN video library at cspan.org. From the Associated Press, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and other military officials have laid a wreath at the Navy Memorial here in Washington in honor of those killed at the Washington Navy Yard. The ceremony coming just 24 hours after a gunman went on a shooting rampage at the Navy Yard, killing 12 people. Defense Secretary Hagel did not offer any comments at the memorial. A service member played taps and military officials saluted. Flags around the nation are at half-staff today in honor of the victims.
to ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations, which the clerk will report.
Nominations: the Judiciary, Patricia E. Campbell-Smith of the District of Columbia to be a judge of the United States Court of Federal Claims. Elaine D. Kaplan of the District of Columbia to be a judge of the United States Court of Federal Claims.
Under the previous order, there will be 30 minutes of debate equally divided in the usual form. Let's vote the second, the first one. Senator from Georgia.
I'll yield back all time.
Without objection, all time is yielded back. The question is on the Campbell-Smith nomination. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The nomination is confirmed. The question is now on the Kaplan nomination.
Ask the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Begich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chiesa, Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Flake, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heinrich, Ms. Heitkamp.
Aye.
Mr. Heller. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Kane. Mr. King. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Manchin. Mr. Markey. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schatz. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Scott. Mr. Sessions. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Ms. Warren, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Durbin, Heitkamp, Isaacson, Schatz, and Warner. Senators voting in the negative: Grassley, Roberts, and Vitter. Mr. Leahy, aye. Mrs. Murray. Mrs. Murray, aye. Ms. Stabenow. Ms. Stabenow, aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Whitehouse, aye. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Harkin, Aye. Mr. Begich. Mr. Begich. Aye. Mr. Corker. Mr. Corker. Aye. Mr. Cardin. Aye. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Aye. Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin. Aye. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Merkley. Aye. Boxer. Mrs. Boxer. Aye. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Aye. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Heinrich. Aye. Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran. No. Mr. Carper. Aye. Mr. Chiesa. Mr. Chiesa. Aye. Mrs. Hagan. Mrs. Hagan. Aye. Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Fisher. No. Mrs. McCaskill. Aye. Ms. Cantwell. Aye. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand. Aye. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Cornyn. No. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Aye. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johans. No. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Barrasso, no. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, aye. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kane, aye. Mr. King. Mr. King, aye. Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono, aye. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sanders, aye. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Blunt, aye. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, no. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, no. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar, aye. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, aye. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coates, no. Mr. Donnelly. Mr. Donnelly, aye. Mr. Franken. Mr. Franken, aye. Mr. Graham, no. Ms. Collins. Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, no. Ms. Ayotte. Ms. Ayotte, no. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, no. Mr. Coons, aye. Mr. Enzi. Mr. Enzi, no. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Coburn, no. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rockefeller, aye. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, aye. Mr. Tester. Mr. Tester, aye. Mr. Levin. Mr. Levin, aye. Mr. Shelby. Mr. Shelby, no. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Hatch, aye. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Toomey, no. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Rubio, no. Mr. Flake. Mr. Flake, no. Mr. Alexander, aye. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Casey? Mr. Casey? Aye. Mr. Udall? Mr. Udall of Colorado, aye. Mrs. Shaheen? Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Ms. Mikulski? Ms. Mikulski, aye. Mr. Pryor? Mr. Pryor, aye. Mr. Nelson? Mr. Nelson, aye. Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown, aye. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman, aye. Mr. Wicker? Mr. Wicker, no. Mr. Inhofe? Mr. Inhofe, no. Mr. Menendez? Mr. Menendez, aye. Mr. Sessions? Mr. Sessions, no. Ms. Warren? Ms. Warren, aye. Mr. McCain? Mr. McCain, aye. No. Mr. Heller? Mr. Heller, no. Mr. Moran? Mr. Moran, no. Mr. Markey? Yes, sir. Mr. Markey, aye. Mr. Thune? No. Mr. Hoeven? Mr. Hoeven? No.
Do you like the permanent provider or provider? That makes sense.
You've got the con.
Mr. Bozeman? Mr. Bozeman? No. Ms. Landrieu? Ms. Landrieu, aye. Mr. Kirk? No. Mr. Burr? Mr. Burr? No. Mrs. Feinstein? Mrs. Feinstein? Aye. Mr. Paul? Mr. Paul? No. Mr. Manchin? Mr. Manchin? Aye. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed of Nevada? Aye. Ms. Murkowski. Ms. Murkowski. Aye. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Wyden. Aye.
Any senators in the chamber wishing to vote or wishing to change their vote? If not, the ayes are 64, the nays are 35, and the nomination is confirmed.
Madam President,